I used to think sleep was a kind of escape, a place where nothing could reach you. No noise, no responsibilities, no consequences. You close your eyes, drift off, and whatever waits on the other side of consciousness has to wait its turn. That's what I believed. That's what most people believe. I don't anymore. It started 3 weeks ago, and I haven't had a full night's sleep since. I work as a sleep technician, not the kind you see in commercials with clean labs and smiling patients waking up refreshed. I work nights in a small clinic on the edge of town, the kind of place people only go to when something is seriously wrong. Chronic insomnia, night terrors, sleepwalking, things that don't have easy fixes. We monitor patients overnight: brain activity, heart rate, breathing, eye movement. We watch them sleep so we can understand why they can't. Most nights are quiet. Rows of dark rooms, soft hum of machines, the occasional murmur from someone dreaming. You sit in the monitoring station, drink bad coffee, and watch lines crawl across screens for 8 hours. It's boring, predictable, safe. At least it used to be. The first patient was checked in just after midnight. Male, mid-30s, no prior history of sleep disorders, no medication, no psychological flags. According to his intake form, he just stopped sleeping. Not insomnia, not exactly. He wrote, "I can't stay asleep because something wakes me up." That's not unusual. People say things like that all the time. Nightmares, anxiety, stress. Your brain jerks you awake for 1,000 different reasons. But there was something about the way he wrote it. Not, "Something wakes me up suddenly," or "I wake up feeling scared." Just, "Something wakes me up." I didn't think much of it at the time. When he arrived, he looked worse than most of our patients. Pale, eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept in days. Which, according to his file, he hadn't. I introduced myself, ran him through the standard procedure. Electrodes on the scalp, chest leads, oxygen monitor. He didn't say much, just nodded along, following instructions like he'd done it before. Before I left the room, he stopped me. "Do you watch the cameras all night?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "That's the job." He hesitated, then said, "If I wake up, don't come in right away." That was new. "Why not?" I asked. He swallowed, eyes fixed somewhere past my shoulder. "Just give it a minute." I should have pressed him, asked why. That's protocol when a patient says something unusual. But he looked so exhausted, so worn down, that I just nodded. "All right," I said. "Try to get some rest." I turned off the lights and closed the door behind me. Back in the monitoring room, I pulled up his feed. 4 camera angles: bed, door, window, and a wide shot from the ceiling corner. His vitals began to settle as he lay down, staring at the ceiling. For the first hour, nothing happened. His breathing slowed. Brain waves dipped into light sleep. Then deeper. Textbook progression, if you ignored the fact that his hands never unclenched. Around 1:47 a.m., something changed. It wasn't dramatic. No sudden movement, no spike in heart rate. Just a shift. His eyes opened, not slowly, like someone waking up. They were just open. One frame, they were closed. The next, they weren't. I leaned closer to the screen, frowning. Sometimes patients wake briefly and don't remember it. Micro-arousals. Perfectly normal. Except he didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe differently. He just lay there, staring straight up at the ceiling. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Then 2. I reached for the intercom. "Sir, can you hear me?" No response. His vitals were steady. No distress. No indication he was even fully awake. I was about to go in. Protocol. When I remembered what he said. "If I wake up, don't come in right away." I hesitated. That hesitation is something I keep coming back to, because if I had just gone in then, maybe things would have been different. Maybe not. At 1:50 a.m., exactly 3 minutes after his eyes opened, his lips moved. At first, I thought he was mumbling, sleep-talking. Again, not unusual. So I turned up the audio. What came through the speakers didn't sound like sleep-talking. It sounded deliberate. "Clear. Not yet," he whispered. I felt a chill run up my arms. "Sir," I said again, louder this time. His eyes didn't shift, didn't react, but his mouth moved again. "You said you'd wait." I froze. There was no one else in the room. No second voice. No background noise. Just him, talking to something that wasn't there, or at least, something I couldn't see. I checked the other camera angles. Door, closed. Window, locked. Room, empty. Just him. And then, slowly, his eyes moved. Not toward the door, not toward the camera. Toward the corner of the ceiling. The one camera angle that didn't quite reach. His heart rate ticked up. Just slightly. I leaned in closer, trying to adjust the feed, but the angle didn't change. That corner stayed just out of view, and he kept staring at it. Watching. Waiting. At 1:52 a.m., he smiled. Not relief, not comfort. Recognition. "You found me," he said softly. And then the audio cut out. The audio didn't just distort or crackle. It dropped out completely, like someone had pulled a cable straight out of the wall. 1 second I could hear him breathing, the faint rustle of fabric, the low hum of the equipment. The next, nothing. Total silence. I checked the system immediately. Audio levels were still active. No error messages. The other rooms were coming through fine. Snoring, shifting, the occasional cough. Just his feed was dead. That shouldn't have been possible. I switched camera angles again, cycling through each view like I might catch something I'd missed the first time. Bed, door, window, ceiling corner. Still nothing unusual. At least, nothing that should have caused the audio to fail. But the patient hadn't moved. He was still staring into that same corner, eyes wide, unblinking. That faint, unsettling smile stretched across his face. I picked up the radio and called down the hall. "Hey, can someone check room 3's audio line? I think I've got a dead channel." No response. I frowned and tried again. "Mary, you there?" Static. That was the second thing that shouldn't have happened. Even in a small clinic, you're never alone on shift. There's always at least another technician. Sometimes a nurse. Someone should have answered. I set the radio down slowly, my attention drifting back to the screen. The patient's lips were moving again. I couldn't hear him, but I could see the shape of the words forming. Slow, careful, like he was choosing each one. Then he stopped. His expression changed. The smile disappeared, replaced by something tighter, tense. His eyes flicked, not wildly, not panicked, but just slightly, like he was tracking something as it moved, across the ceiling, from that unseen corner, toward the bed. My stomach tightened. "All right," I muttered to myself. "That's enough." Protocol or not, I wasn't going to sit there while a patient silently mouthed words to an empty corner and tracked something I couldn't see. I grabbed the spare keycard and headed down the hallway. The clinic always feels different at night, but that walk felt wrong. The lights were dimmed to a soft glow, enough to navigate without disturbing the patients. The hum of machines usually fills the space, a steady, reassuring backdrop. Now it felt muted, like the building was holding its breath. I passed room 1. Quiet. A woman sleeping on her side, breathing evenly. And room 2. A man hooked up to a CPAP, mask fogging slightly with each exhale. Everything normal. Then I reached room 3. The door was closed, just like I'd left it. But the small observation window, it was covered, not by a curtain. We didn't have curtains on those doors. Something dark was pressed against the glass from the inside. For a second, my brain tried to make it make sense. Maybe the patient had gotten up. Maybe he'd leaned something against the door. But the shape wasn't right. It wasn't solid. It shifted. Slowly, like it was breathing. I felt my hand tighten around the key card. "Sir?" I called through the door. "I'm coming in, okay?" No answer. I swiped the card. The lock clicked. And the moment it did, whatever was pressed against the glass pulled away. Not slid, not stepped. It just withdrew. Gone in an instant. I opened the door. The room was exactly as it should have been. Dim lighting, equipment humming, the patient lying in bed. Alone? I stood there for a moment, letting my eyes adjust, listening for anything out of place. Nothing. No extra movement. No strange sounds. Just the steady rhythm of his breathing. Except his eyes were closed again. I stepped closer to the bed, my gaze flicking briefly to the ceiling corner. Still nothing. "Sir," I said quietly, "can you hear me?" His eyes opened. This time, it was normal. Slow. Groggy, like someone waking up. He turned his head toward me, confusion flickering across his face. Did I fall asleep?" he asked. I hesitated. "Yeah," I said, "for a bit." He let out a shaky breath. "I don't remember it." "That's okay," I replied. "That's why you're here." I studied him for a moment. No sign of the earlier tension. No strange smile. Just exhaustion. "Do you remember waking up?" I asked carefully. He shook his head. "No." "Why?" I considered telling him about the staring, the whispering, the way he tracked something across the ceiling. Instead, I said, "You were a little restless, that's all." He nodded, like that made sense. Then his expression shifted. Subtle. But there. "Did you come in right away?" he asked. My chest tightened. "No," I admitted. "How long did you wait?" "Couple of minutes." He stared at me. Not confused. Not relieved. Measuring. Then he nodded slowly. "Good," he said. The word landed heavier than it should have. I glanced back at the ceiling corner, half expecting something. Anything. Still. Nothing. "I'm going to step out," I said. "Try to get some more rest." He didn't respond right away, just watched me. Then, as I reached the door, he spoke again. "Did you hear it?" I stopped. "Hear what?" He swallowed, eyes drifting. Not to the ceiling this time, but to me. "Then it's getting closer." A cold, sharp feeling settled in my stomach. "What is?" I asked. He didn't answer, just turned his head back toward the ceiling. I waited a few seconds, but he stayed silent. Eventually, I stepped out and closed the door behind me. The hallway felt colder, quieter. I walked back to the monitoring room faster than I meant to. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something else was wrong. Every screen was on, every feed active, but none of them were moving. Room 1, the woman on her side, completely still. Room 2, the man with the CPAP, frozen mid-breath. Even the waveform monitors. Flat. Not zero. Just not updating. Like time had paused. Except for one screen. Room 3. The patient was sitting up now, staring directly into the camera. And for the first time since I'd met him, he looked afraid. For a few seconds, I just stood there, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Every other room was frozen. Not asleep, not inactive. Frozen. But room 3 was still moving. The patient, he was fully upright now, the wires trailing from his body pulling slightly as he leaned forward. His eyes were locked onto the camera, wide and sharp, like he knew exactly where I was standing. Like he could see me. Okay. No, I muttered under my breath. That's not possible. I moved closer to the monitors, scanning the other feeds again, hoping for any sign of motion. A twitch, a breath, anything. Nothing. Room 1. Still. Room 2. Still. Even the hallway camera. Empty. Motionless. But room 3. He raised his hand. Slowly. And pressed it flat against the lens of the camera. The screen filled with the pale blur of his palm, the lines of his skin distorted by the glass. Then the feed cut to black. I jumped back, my heart slamming hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. All right, I said, louder now, like saying it out loud would force things back into place. System glitch. That's all this is. I reached for the keyboard, trying to reset the feed. Before I could hit anything, every screen flickered. Once. Twice. Then they all came back at the same time. Room 1. The woman shifted slightly, adjusting her position. Room 2. The man's chest rose and fell again, the CPAP mask fogging with each breath. Hallway. Empty, but normal. And room 3. The patient was back in bed, lying flat, eyes closed, like he had never moved. I stared at the screen, my pulse still racing. No way. There was no way he'd gone from sitting upright, touching the camera, to lying down with his eyes closed in the span of a second. I checked the timestamp on the recording. No gap, no skipped frames. According to the system, nothing had happened. I let out a slow breath and ran a hand over my face. Okay, I whispered. Okay, you're just tired. It was the only explanation that made sense. Long shifts, bad sleep, staring at screens all night. It messes with your head. You start seeing things, filling in gaps that aren't there. That had to be it. I leaned back in my chair, forcing myself to look away from the monitors for a moment. That's when I noticed the clock. 2:03 a.m. I frowned. That couldn't be right. The last time I'd checked, it had been just before 2 o'clock. Everything that had just happened, the audio cutting out, walking to the room, coming back, it should have taken at least 10 minutes. I glanced down at my watch. 2:03. The same. A slow, creeping unease settled over me. Okay, that's not... The radio crackled to life, cutting me off. Hello? I snapped my head toward it. Mary? I grabbed the radio. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you. A pause. Then, who is this? I blinked. It's... What do you mean, who is this? It's me. I'm in monitoring. Another pause. Longer this time. Monitoring, the voice repeated. Something about the tone felt off. Too flat. Too careful. Yeah, I said slowly. Sleep clinic. Night shift. Are you messing with me right now? A faint hiss of static. Then, there's no clinic here. My grip tightened on the radio. What? You're not supposed to be there, the voice continued. If you're hearing this, you need to leave. A cold wave of irritation cut through the fear. All right, that's not funny, I said. If this is some kind of joke, it's not a joke. The way they said it. It wasn't playful. It wasn't teasing. It was urgent. And underneath that urgency, there was something else. Fear. You need to listen to me, the voice said. What time is it for you? I glanced at the clock again. 2:04, silence. Then a sharp intake of breath on the other end. That's not possible, they whispered. Yeah, I've had a weird night, I get it, but no, they cut in. What date? I hesitated. May 14th. Another pause, longer, heavier. Then, quietly, you need to get out of that building right now. Something in my chest tightened. Why? I asked. The radio crackled. For a second, I thought the signal had dropped again. Then the voice came back, lower now. Because that building burned down 30 years ago. I felt the air leave my lungs. What? No one survived, the voice continued. Not the staff, not the patients. The fire spread too fast. My eyes drifted, slowly, unwillingly, to the monitor. Room 3. The patient's eyes were open again. And this time, he wasn't looking at the ceiling. He was looking straight into the camera, straight at me. He's still there, isn't he? The voice asked. My throat felt dry. Who? The one who keeps waking up. A chill crawled up my spine. How do you know about that? I whispered. The radio hissed softly. Then, because he never left. The lights flickered. Every monitor glitched at once, the images warping, stretching. And in every single room, every patient sat up at the same time. Not slowly, not naturally. Instantly. Heads tilted at identical angles. Eyes wide, unblinking. All of them staring directly into their cameras. The radio screamed with static. I dropped it, stumbling back as the screens began to distort. The images twisting like something underneath them was trying to push through. Room 3, the patient smiled again. But this time, every other patient smiled with him. And then, all the screens went black. For a moment, there was nothing. No light from the monitors. No hum from the machines. No quiet breathing from the rooms down the hall. Just silence. Not the normal kind. The kind you get at night when everything settles. This felt heavier. Like the silence was pressing in from all sides. I stood there in the dark, trying to slow my breathing. Trying to convince myself this was still something I could explain. Power outage. System failure. Something rational. But even as I thought it, I knew it didn't fit. Because the emergency lights should have kicked in. They always do. And yet, nothing. I fumbled for my phone, nearly dropping it before I managed to turn on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness in a narrow cone, illuminating just enough of the room to make it worse. The monitors were still on. Black screens, but powered. The faint glow of standby lights blinked beneath them. That meant the electricity hadn't gone out. Which meant something else had. I swallowed hard and forced myself to move. Okay, I whispered. Okay, you need to leave. The voice on the radio had said the same thing. You need to get out of that building. That building burned down 30 years ago. My grip tightened around the phone. No, I muttered. No, that's not. This is real. I walked in here. I checked people in. Didn't I? A flicker of doubt crept in. I pushed it down and stepped into the hallway. The beam of light stretched ahead of me, catching the edges of doors, the dull sheen of linoleum floors. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. The air was thicker, warmer, and there was a smell, faint at first, then stronger. As I took another step. Smoke. I froze. No, that couldn't. A sound cut through the silence, soft, rhythmic. At first I thought it was footsteps. Then I realized it was breathing. Not mine. Not coming from one direction, from all around me. Slow, heavy, wet, like something struggling to pull air through damaged lungs. My chest tightened. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaking despite my effort to steady it. No answer, just that breathing. I turned toward room 1. The door was closed. The small window. Clear. No dark shape this time. I stepped closer, raising my phone to look inside. The bed was empty. The wires hung loose, trailing off the side like they'd been pulled away in a hurry. The machines were still on, the lines on the screen flat and unmoving. No, I whispered. I backed away, turning quickly to room 2. Same thing. Empty bed, loose wires, no sign of the patient. The breathing grew louder, closer. I spun around, the beam of my flashlight shaking as it swept across the hallway. Nothing. But the sound. It was right behind me now. I felt it. Warm air brushing against the back of my neck. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Every instinct in my body screamed at me not to. Instead, I started walking. Slow at first, then faster, then running. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Each door I passed looked identical, repeating in a way that made my stomach twist. Room 4, room 5, room 6. We didn't have that many rooms. The numbers kept going. The breathing followed. All was just behind me, never gaining, never falling back. I reached the end of the hall, or what should have been the end. Instead of the exit door, there was another hallway, identical, endless. "No," I said, my voice breaking. "No, that's not right." I turned around. The way I came, gone. Just more hallway, more doors. The numbers didn't make sense anymore. They weren't even in order. Room 12. Room 3. Room 27. My head spun. "This isn't real," I said, louder now. "This isn't real." The breathing stopped, just like that. Silence crashed back in. I stood there, chest heaving, listening. Nothing. Then, a voice, right behind me. "You're still here." I turned. The patient from room 3 stood a few feet away. No wires, no monitors, just him. His hospital gown hung loose, the fabric darkened in places like it had been soaked and dried over and over again. His skin, it looked wrong, too tight in some places, too loose in others, like it didn't quite fit him anymore. His eyes locked onto mine. "You weren't supposed to stay this long," he said. My throat felt like it had closed. "How are you? What is this?" I stammered. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "You watched," he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement. "I was doing my job," I said, though the words felt weak even as I said them, dumped them. His lips twitched into something that almost resembled a smile. "That's what they all say." A flicker of movement caught my eye. Behind him, in the doorways. Figures, standing just inside the rooms. Dozens of them. Patients, or what used to be patients. Their bodies were wrong in the same way his was. Twisted, burned. Some parts too dark, others too pale. All of them. Watching. You saw us wake up, he continued softly. You heard us. I shook my head, taking a step back. I didn't. This isn't. You waited, he said. Another step closer. The temperature dropped sharply. My breath fogged in front of me. And now, he whispered, it's your turn. The lights flickered, just once, and for a split second, I saw the hallway as it really was. Charred walls, collapsed ceiling, blackened door frames, and bodies burned into the floor, frozen in place where they had fallen. The lights went out again. Darkness swallowed everything, and all around me. The breathing started again. I don't remember deciding to run. 1 second I was standing there, staring at him, at all of them, trying to process what I'd just seen. The next, my body moved. I turned and sprinted into the dark, the beam of my phone light bouncing wildly with each step, barely illuminating anything ahead of me. The hallway didn't make sense anymore. It twisted, stretched, shifted in ways that made my eyes ache if I tried to focus too hard. Doors appeared where there hadn't been any before. Others vanished as I passed them. And behind me, footsteps. Not just one set. Dozens. Dragging. Uneven. Some fast. Some slow. All of them following. Stop! A voice called out. Not his voice. Different. Higher. Broken. You'll get lost! I didn't listen. I couldn't. I just ran. The air grew hotter the further I went. Thicker. Harder to breathe. The smell of smoke was stronger now, mixing with something worse. Something sickly and sweet that made my stomach churn. I turned a corner and slammed straight into a wall. I stumbled back, disoriented. That wall hadn't been there. I knew it hadn't. I spun around, trying to retrace my steps. The hallway behind me. Gone. Replaced by another stretch of identical doors. The footsteps were closer now. Too close. I could hear them clearly. Feel them. The floor beneath my feet vibrated with each step they took. Please, another voice said, somewhere to my left. Soft. Weak. Don't leave us here. I squeezed my eyes shut for half a second. Not real, I whispered. Not real, not real. Something grabbed my wrist. I screamed and yanked back, the phone slipping from my hand and clattering to the floor, its light spinning wildly before settling at an angle. For a moment, all I could see was the floor. Dark. Stained. Then, fingers, wrapped around my wrist, burned. The skin cracked and blackened, peeling in places to reveal something raw underneath. I jerked free, stumbling backward, my eyes snapping up to the face attached to the hand. It was a woman, or what was left of one. Her eyes were wide, glassy, locked onto mine with desperate intensity. Don't go, she whispered. Her voice sounded like it was being dragged through ash. They said someone would come. My chest tightened painfully. I can't help you, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. You can, she insisted, her grip tightening again despite the damage to her hand. You're still breathing. The words hit harder than they should have. Behind her, more shapes moved in the darkness. More faces. All turned toward me. All waiting. You can hear us, another voice said. That means you're still here, a third added. Not like us. The hallway seemed to close in. The heat intensified, pressing against my skin. I don't understand, I said, shaking my head. What do you want from me? The woman's expression shifted. Not anger. Not desperation. Something worse. Understanding. You stayed, she said quietly. You listened. Her grip loosened. Slowly. Now it knows you can hear it too. A low sound rolled through the hallway. Deep. Vibrating. Not human. Every head turned at once. Not toward me. Past me. Down the hall. My stomach dropped. No, the woman breathed. The others began to pull back, retreating into the rooms, disappearing into the darkness. Wait, I started, reaching out, but they were already gone, all except her. She looked at me one last time. You need to wake up, she said. Then she let go. The light from my phone flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. The hallway was empty. No figures, no movement, just silence. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. Then, footsteps. Slow, measured, coming from the far end of the hall. Not like the others. These were steady, deliberate, confident. I didn't move. I couldn't. The sound grew louder, closer. Shape emerged from the darkness. Tall. Too tall. Its head nearly brushed the ceiling, its body thin in a way that didn't look natural. Like it had been stretched. Pulled. Its limbs were too long. Its fingers nearly touched the floor. And its face. There wasn't one. Not really. Just a smooth surface where features should have been. Except for a single, dark opening. Not a mouth. Not quite. But something close. It stopped a few feet away from me. The air grew colder. The heat vanished instantly, replaced by something sharp and biting. You hear them, it said. The voice didn't come from where its mouth should have been. It came from everywhere. From the walls, the floor, inside my head. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. It tilted its head. You listened, it continued. A long, thin arm lifted slowly, pointing past me. To them. My legs felt weak. I didn't mean to. I finally managed, my voice barely audible. It took a step closer. The floor didn't creak, didn't shift. It just moved. You stayed, it said again. The words pressed against my skull. Heavy. You waited. My vision blurred, the edges of the hallway darkening. You can hear us now. The opening in its face widened slightly, and from within it, I heard them. All of them. The voices, the screaming, the pleading, layered over each other in a way that made it impossible to separate one from the next. It was the same sound I'd heard through the headset, but louder. Closer? Inside me. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head. Make it stop, I gasped. You don't want it to stop, it said. Something cold brushed against my cheek. Its hand. You came here to listen. The pressure built. The noise grew. I could feel something pulling at me. Not physically. Something deeper. Like it was reaching into my thoughts. My memories. You will stay, it said. The words settled into me. Heavy. Final. And for a moment, I believed it. The noise didn't just surround me anymore. It sank into me. Every scream, every plea, every fractured voice layered over the next until it stopped sounding like people and started sounding like something else entirely. Something endless. Something that didn't need lungs or air or even time to keep going. I pressed my hands harder against my ears, but it didn't matter. It wasn't coming from outside. It was already inside. You will stay. That sentence repeated, not in the creature's voice, but in mine, like I had thought at first, like it belonged there. My breathing slowed, not because I was calming down, because something was forcing it to. In, out, steady, controlled. My thoughts began to dull at the edges, like someone was turning down the volume on everything that made me, me. And in that quieting space, something else started to take its place, a kind of understanding. This was where they had ended. The patients, the staff, all of them. Not just burned, not just trapped, kept, listening, forever. A flicker of memory pushed through the haze. The woman. You need to wake up. Wake up. The words felt distant, like they didn't belong to this place, like they were trying to pull me somewhere else. The creature's hand pressed more firmly against my face. Cold. Impossibly cold. You hear us, it said again. The pressure in my head spiked. The voices surged, louder than before, drowning everything else out. No, not everything. There was something underneath it, faint, rhythmic, a steady beeping. I froze. Heart monitor. The realization hit like a shock through my chest. The clinic. The machines. I wasn't just watching them sleep. I had fallen asleep too, at some point, at that desk, watching the screens, listening. The beeping grew clearer, stronger, each pulse cutting through the noise just a little more. The creature tilted its head, as if noticing the shift. You're still here, it said. But the words didn't land the same way anymore. They didn't feel final. They felt uncertain. I focused on the sound. Beep, beep, beep. Each one pulling me further from the hallway, from the heat, from the smell of smoke and ash. You stayed, it insisted. Its voice wavered slightly now, like interference on a bad signal. The walls flickered. For a split second, the charred remains showed through again. Then the hallway. Then something else. A dimly lit room. Monitors. A chair. My chair. I forced myself to breathe with the rhythm. Beep. 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 The voices screamed louder, like they were trying to drag me back. And hands. I felt hands again. Grabbing at my arms, my clothes, pulling. Don't leave us! Please! You can hear us! Their voices weren't malicious. They were desperate, and that made it worse. I'm sorry, I whispered. The words tore at my throat. I can't stay. The creature moved closer, its presence overwhelming again, pushing everything else back. You don't get to leave, it said. But there was something different now. Not certainty. Resistance. I clenched my eyes shut, focused on the sound, on the rhythm, on the idea of waking up. I'm not supposed to be here, I said, forcing the words out. This isn't where I am. The pressure cracked, just slightly. The noise stuttered. The hallway flickered again. And this time, it didn't fully come back. The clinic bled through. Faint. Transparent. You listened, the creature said again. But now its voice stretched, distorted, like it was being pulled apart. And I'm done, I said. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it wasn't even true, but I held on to it anyway. The beeping grew louder. Faster. Beep, 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 the creature's hand slipped. The cold faded. The weight in my head lifted just enough for me to think clearly. The hallway shattered. Not all at once. In pieces. Like glass breaking in slow motion. Darkness rushed in to fill the gaps. And then, light. Harsh. Blinding. I gasped, my body jerking upright as air slammed back into my lungs. The monitors were screaming, a high-pitched alarm blaring from every direction. I was in the chair, in the monitoring room, my headset half off, hanging around my neck. The screens, normal. Room 1, patient asleep. Room 2, steady breathing. Room 3, empty. The bed was stripped, the wires gone. Like no one had ever been there. I sucked in another breath, my hands shaking as I looked around. Everything was quiet again. Normal. Except the clock. 2:03 a.m. The radio crackled softly beside me. I stared at it for a long moment before slowly reaching out and picking it up. "Hello?" I said, my voice unsteady. Static. Then, "Can you hear me?" It was faint, distant, but familiar. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because underneath the static, underneath the voice, I could still hear it. Faint, layered, endless. The screaming. And when I looked back at the monitor, just for a second, I saw him, standing in the corner of room 3, watching me, smiling, waiting for me to fall asleep again.